Hi, my name is Mackenzie Riley, and today I will be talking about the Braintree flashpoint, which refers to the famous Sacco and Vanzanetti case. This case became one of the most powerful examples of injustice and prejudice in American history. It took place during the early 1920s, a time when the United States was struggling with fear, division, and suspicion after World War I. The events surrounding this case reveal how much bias, fear, and discrimination could influence the justice system, and how those same emotions could deeply divide a nation. So, as a quick background, in 1920, a payroll robbery and double murder took place at a shoe factory in Braintree, Massachusetts. Two Italian immigrants, Sacco and Benzanetti, were accused of committing the crime. They were both working class men and anarchists, which at the time made them instantly suspicious in the eyes of the public and the police. During this era, immigrants were often viewed with distrust, especially those with strong political beliefs. The country was still recovering from the war, and people were anxious about anything that seemed foreign or radical. As a little bit of context, to understand why this case became such a flashpoint, it's important to look at the Red Scare. After the Russian Revolution in 1917, Americans became afraid that communism and radical political movements might spread into the US. This fear grew into mass hysteria, and many people were arrested or deported just for their beliefs. Sacco and Vanzanetti, being Italian anarchists, fit exactly the kind of people Americans were told to fear. So when the Braintree robbery happened, they became easy targets, even though there was little to no solid evidence against them, and there were multiple labor strikes and bombings, which added to suspicion and government crackdowns. So the trial began in 1921, and from the start, it was filled with a lot of bias and unfairness. The evidence was weak and largely circumstantial. There was no clear proof that they committed the crime. Still, the prosecution focused heavily on their immigrant background and political views, painting them as dangerous outsiders rather than focusing on the factual evidence. The judge was openly prejudiced and made comments that showed clear bias against the defendants. Despite protests and new evidence coming forward, the courts refused to reopen the case or consider the new testimonies. What made the situation even worse was that Sacco and Vanzanetti spent 7 long years in prison while their appeals were denied. This delay became a symbol of injustice, showing how the legal system could be used to punish rather than protect people. Their supporters around the world argued that they weren't being punished for robbery or murder, they were being punished for their beliefs and their background. So the public reaction was, as years went by, the case gained massive international attention. Protests were held across the United States, Europe, and even Latin America. Many writers and artists and activists spoke out, claiming the two men were innocent victims of prejudice. Famous figures voiced their support demanding a new trial. However, many Americans, influenced by fear of radical ideas, believed that executions were justified. This deep divide reflected the tensions within the country between fear, fairness, justice, and discrimination. So the execution or the aftermath was after 7 years of appeals, Sacco and Vanzanetti were finally executed in 1927. Their deaths caused a worldwide outrage and are still remembered as a tragic miscarriage of justice. For many people, this case proved that fear and prejudice could overpower truth in the courtroom. In later years, evidence continued to suggest that the trial had been handled unfairly, and doubts of their guilt persisted. So why was this a historical flashpoint? The Stacco and Vanzanetti case is remembered as a major historical flashpoint because it exposed deep divisions in American society. The entire case heightened tensions between native-born American citizens and immigrants. It highlighted how political fear and injustice can influence institutions that are supposed to protect fairness. It also revealed how quickly a nation can turn against its own ideals when fear takes over. Their case inspired future movements for civil rights, fairness in trials, and equal treatment under law. Even today, it serves as a reminder that justice should never be shaped by fear or prejudice, only by facts and fairness. So the Braintree flashpoint wasn't just about a robbery or a trial, it was about how America reacted under pressure. It showed the dangers of letting fear control injustice and how society often treats outsiders differently. Even though Sacco and Vinzanetti's lives ended tragically, their story still reminds us why fairness, empathy, and open-mindedness are so important in times of fear and injustice. Thank you so much for your time. I hope you guys have a great day.